Welcome back. I'm David the Good, and today I'm going to show you how to make free fertilizer at home from pretty much whatever you have available. You don't need to spend money to feed your garden. Some years ago, I thought I was very clever, and I came up with a method of putting as many minerals into the garden as possible without spending money, stretching a small amount of fertility across a large area. And I thought I was so brilliant. Combining this idea of compost tea with anaerobic liquid and making this swamp water. And then some years ago I found out the Koreans have been doing this for who knows how many centuries. So there's nothing new underneath the sun, but it's easy enough that you can do it, that anybody can do this with pretty much whatever you find. All you need is a barrel or a big bucket or a container of some sort. Then you fill it with water, and then you stuff it full of whatever nitrogenous and mineral-rich material you can get. What you put in it can be adapted to wherever you live and what you have available. You could throw coffee grounds in here. You could throw in kitchen scraps. You could throw in fish guts. If you live near the ocean, you can throw in seaweed. You can throw in green trimmings from your yard, grass clippings. You can go out to a field, chop a bunch of weeds down. One of my favorites is kudzu. Jackpot. You can use comfrey, you can use chicken manure if you have it, you can use pretty much whatever you have available. The idea is to get as many minerals as possible into this mix with the widest range that you currently have available. But even if you just cut a bunch of grass and put it in this water to rot down, it's going to have enough fertility to feed your garden and at least give it some life without you having to buy fertilizer. In my current batches of what I call Dave's Fetid swamp water, I am using chicken guts, chicken manure, dirt from the chicken run, like my friend Elizabeth, and I'm also using comfrey that I have growing in my garden. Tithonia diversifolia, also known as Mexican sunflower. I'm cutting weeds. I have cut clovers and throw them in there. I've got grass in there, and I throw in a little bit of Epsom salts for magnesium. But you don't have to slavishly follow any recipe. I want you to see things differently. I want you to look around and open your eyes and say, what is around here that I could compost and use that I already have? If you find nitrogen fixing trees, like these mimosa, you get lots of nitrogen. Look at how green these things are. That's beautiful. When I was building my lasagna garden, I started going through the different layers, and I was putting in perennial peanut hay, and I had dirt from the chicken run, and I had manure from our cows that I knew didn't have herbicides in it, and I had wood chips that had been dropped on my property. And I got a few comments like, well, I don't have all these things. No. Back up. I want you to see the method and understand the method. Here's what you're doing. You're getting some water and putting it in a barrel and putting a range of materials in it. What you have available, you're going to take the nutrients out of that material, make it a liquid solution in the water, and then water your plants with it. Just got to give this stuff about 2 weeks. It'll rot down. And then if you want to, you can just swirl a stick in there and pull the vines out. 2 weeks is usually it for fertilizing. If you go fishing, throw fish guts in there. If you are skinning carrots in the kitchen, throw the peelings in there. If you've got some food that is spoiled, throw it in there and let it rot down. You're looking to extract the minerals into the water and use that for a fertilizer. And it works. I've used it to water my gardens for years, using whatever I had locally available. I used rotten breadfruit when I was in the tropics. I don't have breadfruit here, but I've got chicken guts from our last slaughtering. That goes in there and rots down. Wait a minute, I can hear everybody saying, won't you die if you do this? Well, let me tell you the truth.
You are going to die no matter what you do.
The question you want to ask is, will this make you die faster? So far, I feel okay. And I've done this for about 10 years. So far, so good. If you want to get through a crisis, you got to know how to do this sort of thing. We don't have fertilizer, you do this sort of thing. You use what you have available. So as for dying, I'm not really that worried about it. The way we use this is very responsibly. We don't pour fetid swamp water, anaerobic, rotting, stinking water on top of plants that we are going to harvest from right away. I would not water my lettuce bed with this. But if I am going to be harvesting potatoes in 3 or 4 weeks or whatever, I will go down the rows, water it. I don't worry about it. I water in seedlings with it. I water plants where the base of the plant is widely separated from where we're harvesting. So corn, go down the base of the corn, water all the corn with it. I don't worry about it. I'm not pouring it over the corn ears and then picking the ears. That doesn't even make sense. The time you really want to get that fertility in the ground is when the plants are young and growing up, not usually when they're right in the harvest season. At that point, you're harvesting and it's over. You don't even need to feed. So this is a way to kickstart and grow, add minerals to the ground, and fertilize without having to buy anything. And it works really well. The difference between fetid swamp water and regular compost tea is that regular compost tea is aerobic, meaning that it has oxygen in it. It's got air in it. People will put a bubbler, I'm sure you've seen this, put a bubbler in a barrel or a bucket, and they find pantyhose. I don't even know where you buy pantyhose or how why people always recommend them, but they'll put it in some pantyhose. Who wears those? I don't even know. Like, it's in every gardening book, you use pantyhose. Use a sock, whatever. So the idea is you're basically making kind of a tea bag with the compost material in there, and you're breeding up those bacteria that are in the compost and the good fungi, and you're keeping it aerobic, so the bacteria and everything are the ones you want in your garden and in your soil. With this fetid swamp water method, what you're doing is trying to extract minerals. The bacteria in the system really don't matter. When you pour them out on the ground and you pour them into the soil, they're going to die off anyways because they're anaerobic, and it doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is make a liquid nutrient solution, not a liquid inoculant solution. You're not trying to breed up bacteria and fungi with a little bit of molasses and bubbling water and using it within 24 hours. No, you're gonna let this stuff rot. It doesn't matter if you keep it in your barrel for 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years. It's got those minerals in it. And the Koreans who do Korean natural farming have been doing this for a very, very long time. And they say it gets better as it ferments. It becomes better for the garden over time. So a year-old fermented solution is even better than one that's only a couple of weeks old. It's a different way of thinking about composting, making a liquid solution rich in minerals. But it's a method that works really, really well and will feed your garden excellently. Somebody wrote me and said that they used morning glories from their garden. They had bindweed, which is the mean thing to call morning glories, that was taking over their fence. So they ripped them all off of their fence. They stuffed them into a 55-gallon drum, and he covered it with water, and he let it rot for a few weeks, and then he watered his garden with the nutrient solution. All of those minerals that had been gathered from the ground by that bindweed was now floating in this liquid suspension. Dip in a couple of watering cans, water the garden, and you've just fed the garden. You took all the hard work the weeds did, everything that went into building a plant, and you just feed it to your gardens. I'll take a couple of watering cans and dip them into a 55-gallon drum. I take the heads off of the watering cans, and more recently I've started cutting the entire top off so it has a slant to it. I just take my miter saw and I put the end of a watering can in it and I cut it. I don't want that little watering rose at the end anymore. I want it to be able to easily pour out the material and whatever weedy bits or unbroken down manure or bits of fish guts or whatever that might clog up a watering can will just flow right through. It makes it much easier. And I just fill them up, and I walk down the rows, and I pour the water out over the plants or around the roots. All you need is a 55-gallon drum, some water, and whatever plant material you have available. If you have weeds, throw weeds in it. If you have some ashes, you can throw some ashes in it. If you have Epsom salts, throw some Epsom salts in it. If you've got seaweed, throw some seaweed in it. You got an old pot of coffee, dump that in there. Got an old lasagna, throw that in there. Let it all rot down. Whatever minerals are in there, they rot and it stinks and it's horrible. But your plants don't have noses, so they don't care. And it will green your garden up. Don't pour it on stuff that you're about to harvest right away. Use this gift responsibly, and it will do excellently feeding your garden. Use what you have available. Also, cover the barrels. Put something over the top. I've got some barrels that have lids on them, which are great, because I could just screw the lids shut. If you don't do this, you often end up with mosquitoes in there. And people will say, whoa, mosquitoes got in. Did it spoil the water? No, it didn't spoil the water. Just pour the mosquito larvae right out on your garden. They're very high in protein. Protein breaks down into nitrogen. It feeds your garden. No matter what you're doing, you're feeding your garden. You could put screening over it, you could put a tarp over it, or if you have a barrel that has a lid, that's even better. Just put a lid over it and then dip into it when you need it and water your gardens. You can learn about this and many other methods of composting in my book, Compost Everything, The Good Guide to Extreme Composting, which I wrote because I was broke and I was trying to figure out how to feed my garden for my growing family on whatever I had available without poisoning us or the earth, and I'll put a link to that below. Thanks for joining me. Go ye out and make free fertilizer. And until next time, may your thumbs always be green. And that's it. The gardens look great on it. It is natural. And there's like a horsefly going around my head. It's weird. I was just having visions.
Alice.
Hey, this is a great method to feed your garden!